Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Game Week 16 Fantasy Football Fix live stream. My name is FPL Nacho, and I am delighted to be bringing you this carnage of a live stream going into this 6:30 deadline. So, thank you for you guys that are tuning in. Let me know in the chat if you are involved, and as always, put your questions in the chat, and I'll be answering as many as possible. So, for you guys that have tuned in to previous live streams, usually we follow a similar format where we go through each step and then I go into a Q&A, open the floor to you guys. But because the deadline is only just an hour away, just over an hour, I think the best thing for us to do is quickly cover some main hot topics, and then we're going to go straight into a Q&A, really get you guys answering as many questions as you want, as I know that is what you are here to do, and obviously why I'm here to answer some of those questions alongside using, of course, the Fantasy Football Fix site. So, as always, guys, if you want to support the channel, make sure you like this live stream, hit that subscribe button and that notification bell, because it is hectic over this winter period. We know the fixtures are coming thick and fast, and you don't want to be missing a thing. And the best part about this all is that if you head over to Fantasy Football Fix, you can sign up to the free trial, and instead of getting a week for free, you get it from today until the end of December. So with all these crazy fixtures going on, there's no better time to do that. So be sure to head over to Fantasy Football Fix and check out that free trial until the end of the year. Best part about it, you get access to all of the premium tools available, which I'm going to be showing you a few of those, which you obviously can check out, which is obviously a great part. So I can see plenty of people in the chat right now. New Tech asking about Jota to Mount. Well, of course, right now, just to quickly cover some of the press conferences from the Liverpool side of things. We know that Jota is a doubt for this game week. Now, we know that he hasn't been training this week. He was potentially going to be training today going into the weekend. So if you are a Jota owner right now, it's a little bit of a nervy time because we don't know whether he is going to be playing or he is going to be out of the game week. I think the initial kind of assumption is if you have him, probably worth holding him, get a bit more information. And if he is then out for the midweek game, then it might be time to reassess the situation on that injury status going forward. I can see we've got Carl saying about carnage. Yes, it is absolutely carnage right now. Cheek, so good evening, FPL Nacho. Hope you're doing well. Yes, we have got plenty to talk about. And as I said, guys, because this is going to be a bit more of a Q&A format, I really want you guys to put your questions in the comments and I'll be trying to answer as many as possible. So, first up, guys, what I want to do is just quickly show you the general transfer activity going into Game Week 16, a usual part that we do on this live stream, just for you guys to have a bit of peace of mind to know what direction managers are going right now in regards to their transfers. You can see here the top 10 all transfer combinations across FPL going into Game Week 16. And you can see that at number 1 is Harry Kane to Cristiano Ronaldo. Now we know, for those that don't know, remember this, Spurs definitely have a blank in Game Week 16, and there is a potential that they are going to have a blank in Game Week 17. Now, the Game Week 17 fixture against Leicester hasn't been confirmed a blank. However, there are some rumours around that they are going to try and make that game week a blank as well for them. So I think the general consensus on Spurs assets is probably to sell. In particular, the likes of Harry Kane, that are such a big chunk of that budget. For you to potentially miss 2 game weeks over this crazy winter period, I really think selling him is the best move to make, particularly with 2 potential blank game weeks. So Kane to Ronaldo is the top transfer combination going into Game Week 16. Of course, Ronaldo, a really favourable fixture away to Norwich. I can see the attraction there for Ronaldo, and we know Man United's long-term fixtures are brilliant. So the attraction there, 9% of the transfer combinations going that way. And the second most transfer combinations, I think that's terrible grammar, I apologise, but Rafinha to Bernardo Silva. Now, Leeds, another team which have a big fixture swing, but unfortunately in the wrong direction. Obviously, with the likes of Chelsea away in Game Week 16 and the likes of Arsenal, Man City's tricky time for Leeds assets. And we know now that Calvin Phillips is going to be out for a few months, we believe, after shoulder surgery. And Bamford is potentially injured as well for this weekend. So not good news for Leeds right now, and rightly so. 5.9% of the transfer combinations going from Rafinha to Bernardo Silva. I can understand that transfer combination. I think Bernardo Silva versus Bowen is something we are going to touch on, because I know two very popular assets and a lot of managers can go to either of those. But right now, more managers are favouring the Rafinha to Bernardo combo at 5.9%. You can see there Rafinha to Bowen being 3.7% of the transfer combination. So slightly skewing towards Bernardo Silva, but I think Bowen's still an excellent transfer. Last one I want to touch on is Tony. Again, for those that don't know, is going to be ruled out for game week 16 with COVID. This will be his last game unless he picks it up again out of nowhere. So he will be available, we think, for game week 17. But let me know in the chat if, of course, there is updated news on that one. Moving over to Josh King. Again, someone that we've talked about a lot on this channel. Watford, with their fixtures going forward, are good. Again, King or Dennis, something we can discuss later looking at the underlying stats. But we know after doing research on both of those, King is the one who is winning in the underlying stats department. And of course, Fantasy Football Fix, driven by data, we are big fans of them sort of metrics. So King would probably be our choice of player as well in the Watford ranks. So again, guys, check out the top 10 transfer combinations. But I can see we have a lot of questions already in the chat. Mio saying, Captain Ronaldo or Salah? I'm 65 points behind the mini league leader, and he'll probably captain Salah/Cancelo. Really good question here. And of course, we have to remember that Salah did feature in that Champions League fixture, which a lot of us thought, why the hell is he doing that? Ronaldo obviously getting a rest in the Champions League. So we're fully expecting Ronaldo to play. I think with the news of Jota potentially missing this game week, that almost cements Salah's game time, especially if Jota is going to miss that. Again, no clarification whether Salah will start, but I do think that Salah is going to play if Jota does miss out. So in regards to both of those, well, first and foremost, with Salah's ownership being around 70%, you know that if you go against Mo Salah in the form that he's in right now and the ownership that he has, if you go against him in captaincy, it is going to really affect your rank if he does go big. And what I'm going to bring up here is our predicted points in this game week to give you an indication on how Salah matches up with Cristiano Ronaldo. So you can see there that we have Salah predicted to score 9 points this game week against Aston Villa. Of course, going to be a tricky game against Aston Villa. Jota there on 8.3 points, but again, that hasn't necessarily updated just because of the expected minutes with Jota with that injury. Of course, if he is ruled out, then that is going to mean that his projected points are a lot less. So this is the assumption that he is going to start. You can see there, Cristiano Ronaldo, we have him projected to score 6.1 points. Now, that isn't a bad projected points at all for an asset if you're planning on captaining them. But I think when we look at Salah, when we look at those projected points and the fixture that they have, we have to remember it's a very good fixture at home. I don't think we necessarily need to overthink it when we come to captaining Salah. I think with the ownership, and it means with the effective ownership rising, obviously when people captain him, bringing it over the 100%, that is probably enough of a reason for us to go with Mo Salah. But I appreciate that a lot of managers out there want to go for a bit of a differential pick with the likes of Cristiano Ronaldo. But let me know in the chat, guys, who are you captaining this game week? Amma said, if you have Jota and Foden, what should you do? Again, this is a really tricky one right now because Jota, as we know, is potentially out for this game week, and Foden, we know from the press conferences, has been noted as a potential injury doubt for this game week. So I really do think if you are a manager right now that has plenty of injuries, then don't be worried about a potential points hit in your team. But I really think first and foremost, look at the rest of your squad. Is there any other issues? Have you got any Brighton players? Do you have any potential Spurs players missing nearly 2 game weeks if the Leicester game gets postponed? If that is the case, I would target those. And then if not, then prioritise maybe moving away from one of Jota or Foden. But really, I would tell you guys to hold those two for sure. I'm saying if you have Jota, okay, covered that one. Simon, would you start any of Gallagher, Guehi above Foden and Jota? Okay, so I can understand why managers right now are potentially planning on starting other players over these injury risks in their side. I totally understand that because, of course, Jota might potentially come off the bench for minutes, or Foden might come off the bench. But we know with the fixture analyzer here, which I'm going to bring up, we can see the games that they have this game week. So we see Crystal Palace are playing Everton at home this game week, which I think is a good fixture for Crystal Palace assets. Everton had a really good result against Arsenal, but I wouldn't necessarily say that that has resolved any problems that they have this season. I still think that there is work in progress at Everton. So from a Crystal Palace perspective, I do understand why you might want to start the likes of Gallagher or even Guy, but I just think you're going to kick yourself if you bench both Foden and Jota and they both start in game week 16. I think it's one of those tricky game weeks where you almost have to play these assets and hope for the best. And you never know, you might get a situation where both of those might get either 90 minutes or 0 minutes. I think that's probably the case for both of those. I don't see a situation where if they're carrying knocks, they need to come off the bench unless they're really struggling in those games. So personally, I would recommend just starting those and hoping for the best. I think they won't come off the bench in that case. Dude saying Foden news. Again, as I mentioned, no concrete evidence in regards to Foden, but we do think that he is carrying a knock that we know from the press conferences, and he is going to be a doubt potentially going into game week 16. Okay, so I have a question from KS Mon saying, take out Diogo Jota. If for, who should you bring in? Okay, so this is going to be a popular question. So I think first and foremost, the best thing to do with Jota right now is look at the rest of your team. I personally think that selling Jota is the wrong move. I think that if your team can allow it and you have a squad good enough, benching Jota is probably the best move for a guaranteed starter in 90 minutes if you are worried about Jota's minutes. And then reassess after this game week going into the midweek fixtures, because as we know, Jota's underlying stats have still been excellent and he's still been performing really well, bar the miss against Wolves. And we know with the African Cup of Nations coming back in January, that is going to be a game time where we really do want Jota. So selling him to then rebuy him later down the line doesn't really seem like the best use of free transfers. So what I've done here is brought up the fix comparison matrix. And I've got a couple of assets here which I think if you are looking to move away from Jota could be in your considerations. Now, it's worth mentioning as well, a lot of managers right here are sat with the likes of Rafinha. You're even sat there with the likes of Phil Foden and thinking what direction to go. So I think these four here right now, and let me know in the chat if there's any other assets you want me to include in the fixed comparison matrix, and I'll put them in for us to compare against one another. But right now, just going to stick with these four as I know they are popular assets, in particular Bernardo and Bowen, that managers are considering in their side. So first and foremost, you can see there the projected points over the next 5 game weeks. We have Mason Mount actually top with 24.1 points over this period. Now, I would say that, of course, we have the expected minutes quite high on Mason Mount, but I would really urge people just to remember that Chelsea do have bags of talent in these areas. Pulisic, Ziyech, Havertz, Werner's, Hudson-Odoi. So, although Mason Mount, I would probably argue, is one of Chelsea's number 1 starters, there is a good chance that he could still get rotated. But if he was to start over this period, we do have him projected to score 24.1 points. Now, Bernardo Silva is second with 22.4 points. Now, for those that do tune in to Fantasy Football Fix, you know that we have deep dived into Bernardo Silva's, into the Gundogans, into the Fodens. And you know that the Bernardo Silva output right now, from a stats perspective, is overperforming. The stats aren't really suggesting that it is a sustainable form over the longer term. The shot volume is a little bit lower than we would see from the likes of Foden or Gundogan over a sustained period. And with his XG and XA, they just aren't necessarily there to suggest that this purple patch that he's in is going to continue for weeks and weeks. However, no doubting that at 7.6 million, he is a brilliant asset. And I know that he's still been performing well. Bowen on 20.9, been really doing well over recent game weeks. And somebody whose underlying stats are slightly more supporting the output than others. And Gundogan, again, I think we're worried about his minutes really coming back in. So you can see that Bernardo Silva, 84 points in comparison to the rest. It's worth mentioning that he has played the second most minutes of these 4 assets. Mount playing slightly less, and Gundogan. 7 goals for Bernardo Silva. 7 assists for, we can see there, Bowen. Of course, being on set pieces for Bowen is a big factor to his game, which a lot of managers are considering. But it's the shots that I really want to touch on with you guys. Now, as I mentioned, Mason Mount has only played 706 minutes, but has had more shots than Bernardo Silva, who has played basically double the amount of minutes, who's only had 18. And you can see that Gundogan has only played 841, has had 25 shots. So all of these assets have had more shots than Bernardo Silva. And of course, if they're hitting them all off target, then of course that is a different metric. But I really do think that shot volume is a big factor in the game, because with 18 shots and 7 goals, that sort of conversion rate just isn't sustainable over the course of a season. Whereas you see Bowen there with 36 shots, that's more of a shot volume that I'd want to see from an FPL asset. Big chances created, you can see there, is going to Mason Mount, and big chance created towards Bernardo Silva with 4. So looking at the underlying stats, I really do think that Bernardo Silva is still a great asset to target. Mount is probably the one that's going to get overlooked over the coming game weeks, and right now I think it's hard to justify Gundogan over Bernardo Silva, mainly because of Kevin De Bruyne coming back into the side. You'd probably expect Gundogan of the two to be rested rather than Bernardo Silva, and the projected points is slightly favouring Bernardo Silva as well. But Bowen at that price point, I really think is the value pick in this game right now. So we can see here we have plenty of questions coming in, so I'm going to try and get through plenty of these right now. So we have got one fact saying, what about replacing Sanchez? Yes, so of course, Brighton with a blank game week this weekend means that a lot of managers right now are sat there with Sanchez and no playing goalkeeper, and you might be sat there with Foster and of course without a playing goalkeeper, which is going to really hinder your team. Now, I think looking at it going forward, I think a lot of managers are looking at the likes of Man United going forward, and I'm going to bring up the fixture analyzer again, because we see there Norwich, Brentford, Brighton, Newcastle, Burnley, Wolves, really good fixtures for Man United. And I would say the games that they do have here are teams that don't necessarily historically score that many goals. Wolves being the second least goals scored in the league. We know Norwich struggle for goals. Even Brentford have been struggling recently for goals. And Brighton, say no more with Brighton. So from a defensive perspective, I do think that Man United are a team that we could be targeting from a defensive point of view. But, and that's a big but, it is worth mentioning that over the last 3 game weeks, Man United have had an expected goals conceded of around 4.5, and they've actually conceded 3. So while the likes of Man City have conceded the same amount of goals over that period, their expected goals conceded is significantly less, which hints to me that, of course, yes, Man City have conceded the same as Man United over this period, but Man United have actually, deserve to concede 3, and if not a bit more, whereas Man City, you'd argue, over the longer term are going to concede less goals. So I just want to put that out there for those managers that are considering doing Sanchez as De Gea. Just be cautious that Man United defensively still haven't been, completely resolved. We haven't necessarily got the best Man United defence over the coming game weeks. But what to do with Sanchez? My recommendation would be target other players in your team right now. Then if you don't have a playing goalkeeper and you have transfers available, or maybe a -4, then moving Sanchez across to the likes of De Gea or even someone like Gaeta is a nice option. Now, what I do want to say is, of course, because Brighton's game has been postponed, we are going to see a double game week for Brighton. Now, when this happens, we don't know. I think there's rumours that it's going to be beyond game week 21. A strategy that a lot of managers are considering right now is upgrading their reserve goalkeeper in the likes of Ben Foster into a playing goalkeeper for this game week, which leaves you with Sanchez and another playing goalkeeper. Now, I know that's a lot of money to invest in the goalkeeper department, but over the longer term, you might have then an asset in Sanchez that's going to play in that double game week. So that is worth noting as well going forward. Okay, so we have a question from Jad that's saying, is it worth it to plan on getting Bowen instead of Antonio, or get them both by downgrading Reguilon? Okay, so I think this is a really good opportunity here just to check out the projected points over the coming game weeks to see which asset is going to be performing better according to our algorithm. So looking over the next 5 game weeks, I'm going to bring it up here. You can see that Antonio is projected to score 27.3 points over this period. Now, we know that West Ham have favourable fixtures going forward, so definitely an asset that we do want to target, especially if you're sat there with the likes of Harry Kane and you don't want to go to someone like Ronaldo. I really do think that Antonio at his price point could offer real value alongside the likes of Josh Kings, or even going down into cheaper like Dennis. Now, when we bring in Bowen, as I mentioned, he's predicted to score about 20.9 points over the same period. So right now, I think of the 2 West Ham assets, I think that Antonio is probably the better pick, but I'm conscious that it is squad dependent. If you're sat there with a Rafinha, I think the sideways move is nice for your team, but equally, Ronaldo down into Antonio is going to free up plenty of funds to you to invest in other areas of your team. So again, it's completely team dependent, but we do have Antonio to score more points than Bowen over that period. Neo saying, should I go Salah and Mane double up? I personally wouldn't recommend this. Of course, we have about 4 game weeks at least where both of these players are going to be available, but then Africa Cup of Nations is going to be coming along early January, which means that you're going to lose both of those assets in your team. And while Liverpool have good fixtures going forward, I really don't think that investing that much money into 2 premium assets in the midfield is going to be the best use of that cash, personally, from a personal perspective. Fanta saying, my strategy is always spreading the money all over the team, which is good because I have to take hits to bring in play. Yeah, I like that strategy. Regan saying Embuemo, Gallagher for Bowen. Which one to sell? I really think that Embuemo of the 2 is the best one to sell. As I mentioned from our fixture analyzer, you can see that over the next 6 game weeks, Crystal Palace are predicted to have the best fixtures over that period. Whereas Brentford, you can see about middle. So they have some good fixtures along the way, in particular the Watford game at home. But if I had to pick one to sell, I would sell Embuemo of the 2 to go into someone like Bowen, who is predicted to score pretty decent over the next 6 game weeks. Okay, we got plenty of questions. Smokey the Cat, what a great name. Tony and Rafinha out for Antonio and Gray, or Silva and Broha. Okay, so Tony and Rafinha out for Antonio and Gray, or Silva and Broha. Okay, so basically with this move here, you're going to be bringing in guaranteed game time with Antonio and Gray. I think Gray is going to be a guaranteed game time for Everton. And we've seen with Antonio, he's projected to score some decent points over the coming game weeks. On the other hand, Bernardo Silva, as we saw, about 22 points projected over the next 5 game weeks. Broha, on the other hand, is an asset that is definitely a rotation risk over the coming game weeks. Now, the main reason for that is because of the likes of Armstrong and Adams in that Southampton team. But what I quickly bring up here is Broha as an FPL asset, just to give you an example of how he's performing against other assets. So if we come along to Armando Broha in, let me just find him a minute, wherever he is. Apologies, guys. Okay, so Broha here, we can see, play 488 minutes, points per game, 3 points per game. Touch heat map is looking decent, to be fair, as an FPL asset. You can see plenty of touches within that 18-yard box, which is always good to see from a forward. But I know you want to see the typical underlying stats. We can see that 3 goals, 2.65 expected goals, which is good to see from an asset around 5 million, I believe, 5.1 million. And 15 shots over 480 minutes is a decent amount, 7 of those on target. I think Broha is a nice asset if you do want to have a playing forward and you don't want to go all the way down into a dead 4.5 million asset. My one worry would be potential rotation. You can see, I know he struggled a little bit with injuries, but 488 minutes with the likes of Armstrong, Redmond, and as I mentioned, Che Adams. I think he is going to be a bit of a rotational asset. So I would probably go for the first option in Antonio and Gray. And as we know, Everton's fixtures do start to swing a little bit from game weeks, I believe game week 18 onwards. So he could be a nice hold for you over the longer term. What we got here? Just checking out any sort of questions. Like I say, guys, fire any questions that you have. Sakir saying, is Antonio rising tonight? Okay, so that's a really good question. Of course, with the algorithm, with the deadline being in 45 minutes, guys, make sure you get those teams locked in. Price changes aren't going to affect you going into game week 16, but of course, following into game week 17, we will know that he is going to potentially rise in price ahead of game week 17. So we can see here, Antonio is projected to rise in price tonight, being a really popular asset right now in the game. 6% progress per hour. He has exceeded the 100% threshold. So yes, we are projecting him to rise in price tonight. So again, probably doesn't influence you because of the game week 16 deadline, but we know that they are definitely an asset that you probably want to hold going forward. So I think it's worth bringing him in if you think he is an asset going forward that you want to own. Right, guys, what have we got? Victor saying, is it wise to take hit this game week, since I do not have any bench cover, I have 2 free transfers, and we'll be doing Kane to Ronaldo and Dyer to Dalot. Any options, opinions on that? Okay, so 2 free transfers, we'll be doing Kane to Cristiano Ronaldo and Dyer to Dalot. My recommendation would be, I don't mind their moves. I don't mind their moves personally. I think Cristiano Ronaldo is a guaranteed asset this game week in particular. I think a lot of people are worried about Ronaldo with the weekend, midweek, weekend sort of fixture run. That is going to be a bit of a worry for managers based on his fitness and his game time. But you're going to get guaranteed game time in this week, and we know Dyer is blanking this week. I touched on Man United defensively. I still haven't seen enough from them defensively to suggest that they are going to be good value for money. But with Dalot at 4.4 million, and what I'm going to do here is just bring up the player heat map for Dalot, just to get an idea on how he is performing in his few games that he has featured for Man United, just to get an idea on his touch map in different areas. Because as we know, Wan-Bissaka is struggling with a potential injury going into this game week, and it's worth noting as well that the slight early indications is that Ralph is a fan of Dalot. Again, what I would suggest for managers is, if you are bringing in Dalot, just have that slight caveat that he could be a rotation risk over the coming game weeks with the midweek weekend fixtures. But we know that from an attacking perspective, he offers a lot for Man United. Now, comparing the two here is very difficult because Dalot's only played 274 minutes, Wan-Bissaka 1,170. And you can see from the touch heat map here, for both assets, Dalot getting into good spots, but there's no argument here to say Wan-Bissaka wasn't necessarily getting into attacking areas in the team. And again, such small sample size. But when we look at it here, again, Dalot has played such small minutes. I really don't want to read too much into this, but you can see already in those small minutes that Dalot has played, he already has a higher expected goals than Wan-Bissaka, really showing the lack of creativity that Wan-Bissaka was bringing to this Man United side. 0.09 for Wan-Bissaka, 0.12 for Dalot, and he's already matched Wan-Bissaka with 2 shots compared to his 2. Shots on the box, 2 for Wan-Bissaka, 1 for Dalot. And Wan-Bissaka is slightly winning the expected assist, but you would imagine that with the amount of minutes that he has played over recent game weeks. So I really wouldn't urge people necessarily to jump in on Dalot, but if you want a short-term option, I think right now he does have the shirt in this team. Ralph's given him an opportunity, and at 4.4 million, with these underlying stats over the last 2 game weeks, is worth mentioning, and the fixtures coming up, I think he's a nice option to bring in if you have a Spurs defender like Dyer, who's clearly going to get no game time, potentially over the next 2 game weeks. So I'm really not against that move at all. Okay, we have some good... Jack saying sell Smith Rowe for Bowen, or maybe Jota to Bowen. As mentioned, Jota is a really tricky asset right now, but I really do think if you can just hold him this game week, it is going to pay off in the longer term. Either you're going to get more information about his injury, then he can become a sellable asset, or you're going to get a situation where he starts and you are obviously owning still one of the best value players in the game. So of the two, I still think selling Smith Rowe is the better move. However, if you want guaranteed game time this game week and that's your main priority, then I would probably suggest you selling Jota to Bowen if game time is your main issue this game week. Lol said, I took a -4 to transfer out Kane. I have Sanchez. Is it worth to go to a -8 to Ramsdale or De Gea? Okay, so looking at, again guys, we've got to come to the projected points over the coming game weeks for us to get a good idea on how they are operating against one another. And you can see here that Ramsdale over the next 6 game weeks is projected to score 26.2 points. De Gea, on the other hand, 25.6. So it's worth mentioning that there really isn't too much in it. The main thing being Ramsdale is slightly cheaper, at 0.1 million cheaper. Now, I think a lot of people probably argue that Man United have the better fixtures over the long term. But Ramsdale's already been proven that he can keep clean sheets in this Arsenal team and is racking up decent save points and bonuses along the way. De Gea is probably more of the, I would say, riskier pick from a perspective that we don't know how this Man United team are going to operate going forward under a new manager. We have a bigger sample size for Ramsdale to know what you're getting from him as a keeper. So I would probably still favour people to go towards Ramsdale just because we have more information about this Arsenal team as a defensive unit. But De Gea is definitely the real pull-in goalkeeper right now, just because of the market forces going towards him, and of course these attractive fixtures. But worth noting that Ramsdale is projected to score slightly more points than him, but it's very close, very close indeed. Jazz saying, what to do with Duffy next week? Okay, that's a really good point. So of course, as we know, Brighton, in terms of this game week, don't have a game week, and that is because of the COVID situation at Spurs. But Brighton, after this game week, going forward, we know that they're in a little bit of trouble. A little bit of trouble, to say the least. Wolves at home, which I'd argue is a decent fixture, but then Man United, Brentford, and then Chelsea. I wouldn't necessarily say the best fixtures going forward. And of course, with the blank this game week, you would have had a blank anyway with Duffy, so it doesn't hinder you in the slightest. My main thing would say with Duffy, look at the rest of your team right now. If you have any other issues in your team, then I'd probably prioritise those, because Duffy, at his price point, you might have bought him a little bit cheaper as well at 4 million. Don't think he's an urgent sell. With Dunk being out long term, potentially Veltman being out, and Webster, you're probably going to get Duffy starting the most of these games going forward. But the big thing about the likes of Dunk being injured is that Brighton as a defensive unit is going to be hindered from his absence. So Duffy, I think he's fine to hold. But if you have no other transfers that you need to make, I think Duffy, maybe a sideways move to maybe Dalot, if you really want to go a bit adventurous and a bit of a differential, that could be a nice move over the coming game weeks. We probably know that Dalot is going to start at this game week and maybe the midweek fixture. And over those 2 game weeks, I think there's good potential for a decent score there for Dalot. But as I touched on, defensively over the last 3, Man United just haven't been putting up the numbers to suggest that they are going to be keeping clean sheets and going to be a clean sheet monster all of a sudden. I don't think that's necessarily going to happen at all. Somebody saying, would you start any of Gallagher, Gay above? Okay, I've covered that one. One saying, Son to Bernardo, a good move. So, of course, recently I touched on Bernardo Silva's underlying stats, and we know that he is still overperforming his underlying his actual output, but projected points are still solid for the coming game weeks. And we know with Man City's fixtures coming up, they still have brilliant fixtures. And I always find with Man City as a team, let me know in the comments, guys, you're the same. I don't really look into Man City's fixtures that much because I personally just have them as one of the best attacking teams in the league. And I really don't think that any fixture necessarily hinders them from an attacking perspective. Wolves coming up, they've done well in terms of clean sheets recently and putting up a good defensive display. But Leeds with their injuries, I'd fancy Man City there. And then, of course, Newcastle away, they have plenty of injury problems there, defensive problems, and Leicester struggling under Rodgers. So really do think that that is a solid move to make with Man City fixtures coming up. Checking the questions here. Brandon saying, should I start Ben White or Livramento for Rafinha on the bench? Well, that is a question I could definitely bring up our projected points just to give you a real good indication on how each asset is going to perform this game week. That might help you. Again, this is only a projection based on underlying stats and expected minutes. But you can see there, Ben White projected to score 3.9 points. I've completely forgotten about your other questions. Livramento or Rafinha? Okay, so we can see here, Livramento projected to score 2.3 away to Arsenal with Southampton's injuries and defence. I definitely would favour Ben White over Livramento. And we can see Rafinha there on 3.2 projected points in a tricky away fixture against Chelsea with the likes of Phillips and Bamford out. So of those picks, I would go for Ben White personally. Would have been the one that I would have said anyway. And I would expect them not necessarily to keep a clean sheet, but I think they do have a favourable chance of doing so. And I think Ben White is the right move to make. Just saying bench Jota or Smith Rowe. Super tough one, this one, as I mentioned, because Jota's minutes are unclear. I personally would probably, with Smith Rowe, we're getting guaranteed minutes. I would be very tempted just to start Smith Rowe and bench Jota because you have such a strong guarantee start. Oh, I apologise. Smith Rowe is a slight injury risk. I apologise, so he's not guaranteed minutes. Sorry, guys. Kill me in the comments there for that one. I really do think that of the two, if I want to start one, it would have to be Jota. And if we haven't had any more information recently about Smith Rowe and he's just as much of a risk as Jota, I would go Jota. As I mentioned, with Jota, I think if he is injured, he'd get no minutes. That's my personal opinion. So it doesn't matter really who you start. Carl's saying Fred. Fred is a consideration. That is a brave pick. Let me know in the chat, guys, if you have gone for Fred. Has he been in any of your transfer plans? I really want to know one manager that has brought in Fred in this game week. It would be an absolute dream to see him as an FPL asset going forward. Felix saying Tony to King and Son to Bernardo and play without a keeper, or Son to Bernardo and Foster to Ramsdale, or Tony to King and Sanchez to Ramsdale. Already have Foden. Wow, that's a lot of transfer combinations there. Okay, so Tony to King and Son to Bernardo I really do like, and play without a goalkeeper. As I mentioned, playing without a goalkeeper is a real problem because obviously you're going to start the game week with 10 players, whereas outfield players, you have the luxury of your bench coming on for them. You have one goalkeeper starting, one rested. If you know that both of them aren't playing, you have no goalkeeper. So I'm not a big fan of not having a goalkeeper, but I think outfield players should be the priority because of the higher FPL ceiling. So I would probably go for the Sunbright, Foster to Ramsdale or Tony. I like the second option. I don't mind the second option there at all. Just checking out. Apologies, guys. Quite a few just flooded in all of a sudden, so I need to find out where I was. Nucaratum, hope you're doing well, buddy. Hey, Nacho, should I do Son to Mount or Bowen? Again, I had this one up previously. I hope I still have it up in regards to which asset to go for, Mount or Bowen. But what I do know is that we do have Bowen to score less points than Mount over the next 5 game weeks. What I probably would say is, personally, I feel, and let me know in the chat if you agree, guys, Bowen is probably more of a guaranteed game time than Mason Mount. I think Mason Mount gets in this Chelsea starting 11. However, we know that Tuchel has so much luxury with his choices available. We know Ziyech's a little bit more favourable now as an asset under Tuchel. So Mount is projected to score more, but I think at 1 million less, I would probably go for Bowen and then invest that 1 million elsewhere. I think you could do a lot more with your team going in that direction. But that's not to say that Mount isn't going to do well in the coming game week at all. Nuclear just take the -8. Sean saying Jota to Sancho. I don't think Sancho is the right move right now. With his position in the Man United team, we haven't necessarily seen enough from him to justify going towards him. I don't think necessarily his minutes as well are going to be guaranteed. Greenwood could easily share minutes with him. Sancho, I think, is a wait and see as a Man United asset. Then if we do see more game time from him and actual output, then he's definitely a consideration going forward. And let me know, guys, in the chat, have you made your transfers yet? I am currently filming this. I haven't even made my last transfer. So we could have a bit of a deadline transfer sesh going on with me making a panic decision. So I need you in the chat to let me know what to do with my own personal team. But let me know in the chat, guys, have you made your transfers just yet? And if you haven't already, make sure to like the video and hit that subscribe button because we have plenty of videos dropping over this winter period. Jack saying sell Smith Rowe to Bowen and only have Jota and Brownhill on the bench with Lamptey third. Don't mind that move at all. I think Bowen over the longer term is going to be a nice pick. Of course, you'll get Brownhill off the bench. It might just be one of those weeks, really, where you just have a bit of a weaker squad and you try and look over a longer period. I think a lot of managers right now are really pumping in on this one game. We can be panicky. I wouldn't be too worried right now. Nukarata saying, are there any stats to prove Burnley will give West Ham a hard time and that's better to bring Bowen for Norwich instead? Okay, so yeah, let's have a look quickly. I appreciate that this is probably quite a bit stats heavy, but let me quickly whip it up. We're going to get the OptaStats sandbox. Let's check out the teams. Again, guys, brilliant part of the Fantasy Football Fix website. If you haven't already, make sure to get your squad first and foremost uploaded on Fantasy Football Fix for free. Gives you opportunity to use some of the free tools and sign up to the free trial. I really urge you guys to do so. You get access to all the premium tools from now until the end of the year. And again, with all the crazy fixtures going on over the winter period, this can really help you out. So I really do recommend that. So let's come to the defending tab here in the OptaStats sandbox. And let's have a look at the expected goals conceded. Because of course, if you're bringing in someone like Bowen, you want to know if Burnley defensively are a sound team or not. And first and foremost, look at it generally. You can see that Burnley have played 14 games so far this season, conceded 21, and expected goals conceded of 20.92. So they're right on the average. They're right on par with what they're doing. They're not necessarily overperforming or underperforming defensively. So I think defensively, they are still looking okay. I don't think they're necessarily going to put up the best display, but their stats there to suggest that they are going to be hard to crack in the sense that they were against, Watford or Newcastle. They're going to be tougher than them sort of ones. You can see the shots here. In terms of that, they've conceded the third most shots. Now, we knew from the shot volume with Bowen that he has had considerably more shots than the likes of the Man City assets. So, putting 2 and 2 together, Burnley conceding the third most shots in the league, and Bowen with that huge shot volume. Could be a good day at the office for Bowen from that perspective. But from a goals conceded perspective, I think Burnley are going to be a bit of a tricky customer. But I like the shot volume there, and I like what I'm seeing with Burnley in regards to shots conceded. So Bowen this game week would not be surprised at all if he delivers on some front. And I think there's a good chance for Bowen this game week. SJ saying Watkins predicted points, especially since Ings is now back. Now, I probably wouldn't recommend using the projected points for Watkins. Main reason being, we're not sure whether it has been updated with the Ings coming back into the side, because I do think that this could have an impact on Watkins' projected points. So what I would say with Watkins, if you're looking to bring him in, just be cautious that we don't know what kind of formation or direction Gerrard is going to take the team once both are available. But if he does go down the same direction as Watkins and Ings done previously, we might see Watkins be more favourable on the left-handed side of an attacking three. So that's my one thing about Watkins, is if you bring him in, just be cautious that his position could change in that team. Okay, I'm going to fly through these questions, guys, so I appreciate that I've been rambling quite a bit. That might mean I won't be able to use the Fantasy Football Fix website because it takes me a while. So let's get in on it. Cheekster, who would you replace Tony with? Currently have Antonio and Dennis and have a total of 7.2 million available to spend. With that available, I don't think necessarily going for the Watford double up is the best route to take. I don't like having a double up on a team like Watford. I just think you're going to be getting a headache week in, week out. So if I had to move that direction, I would consider maybe going down to a 4.5 million option, or maybe a 5 million in Broha. And then you have the opportunity to bench him if you want to, and you have funds available to spread across. Don't think there's any other assets available at that price point who I would be considering personally. Brandon saying, due to COVID cases in the Norwich squad, does this match have a risk of postponement? Yes. What I would say, guys, caveat is all of these games are potential postponements. I think that's just worth noting that they all can happen. I think it's just a case of going with the information that we do have. That could happen, but I don't think that should hinder you from bringing Man United players in at all. Will saying, is Dalot the best 4.5 million defender at the moment? I personally think that he is probably the biggest upside in terms of that defensive perspective right now. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to leave this on the projected points, guys, over the next 6 game weeks, just so you guys can check out that, obviously, if you want to see the projected points. But I do think that Dalot at 4.5 million, 4.4 million is a really good option to have. High risk, but high reward, I think, over the long term. I don't mind that move at all. FPL Devil saying, my mind is Salah, Bernardo, Bowen, Rashford and Jota. So Jota to mount for -8. Don't mind that move, but I just think Jota, if you could hold him, is probably the best move to make. And FPL Devil saying Dalot is nailed on, 100% guarantee that. So guys, if he is benched, you know where to go. No, I apologise. Rocco saying Sanchez -4 for Gaita or De Gea. Don't mind that. One thing I would say with Sanchez, we know at some point he is going to get a double game week because of the postponement. So it's worth noting that. But if you want guaranteed game time this week, I'd probably just favour De Gea. But we know Crystal Palace over the next 6 have the best fixtures. So I think either are good. I think if you want to keep it at the same price point, Gaita. But otherwise, if money was no object, I probably would just go to De Gea. Hayden saying best out of Bowen, Sancho and Silva. We covered this previously. I'm going to take Sancho out of the equation because he really isn't performing at the likes of Bowen and Silva. I think Silva is still projected to score more points than Bowen, but I think at 1 and a bit million less, I think Bowen is the value pick. But the one thing I would say, if we can get guaranteed game time in this Man City attack, I really do think it is a bit of a cheat code right now in FPL. So I would be very tempted to go for Silva. Safari saying, which 2 of Dalot, Gallagher and Jota have highest projected points this game week? I can do that quickly for you now, so we can get up. As I mentioned, it's worth saying, Jota there, 32.5 projected points over the next 5 game weeks. That is without consideration of that injury. It's worth noting. So I would take all of these projected points with a pinch of salt for Jota. But with Gallagher, we can see that Gallagher is projected to score 17.4 over the coming game weeks, 3.4 this game week. And Dalot is projected to score 1 point this game week, which I would take that again, guys, with a pinch of salt. I think the projected points there haven't necessarily taken into account the injury to Wan-Bissaka and Dalot probably being the number 1 right back as we speak. So I can't really judge on that. From a personal perspective, I think that for this game week, I would say Dalot has probably got the highest projected points just because of the game time. Mr. Ronick for Arsenal saying, keep Vardy for Newcastle or bring Ronaldo in for hit a week early. Okay, so we know Vardy is a good option this game week. Obviously, he played 90 minutes in the Europa League, so it's worth mentioning that right now because that could obviously affect your kind of thought process on whether you want to have Vardy going forward. I think going to Ronaldo is a solid move to make for a -4. Main reason being is because of the potential blank for Leicester in game week 17 if that game gets called off for COVID. So I don't mind that move for -4, but I would really question the rest of your squad. Do you need to make that -4? Because this particular game week in isolation, we know that Jamie Vardy is up there with one of the best assets at 6.2 projected points. So I wouldn't necessarily rush to make that transfer right now, mate, at all. Like I said, guys, let me know. Have you made your transfers yet? Are you still sat there with transfers ready to make? Let me know. Mr. Snipes saying, thoughts on Greenwood? I wouldn't go with Greenwood right now. Minutes are really unsure right now in this Man United side. Wouldn't touch Greenwood. Sai saying, should I start Jota or Mbeumo? This is super tough as well. I personally think I would start Jota and just hope for the best. Mbeumo otherwise has a good fixture at home to Watford. It really depends on what kind of manager you are. If you just want guaranteed game time, go for Mbeumo. With Tony being out, there's no chance Mbeumo is going to get rested. Otherwise, you know, Jota has that higher ceiling if he does get game time. I appreciate that. Chris, evening. How are we doing, buddy? Hope you're well. Rowan saying alternative for Tony and same price range. I really think if you don't have any of the Watford assets, Josh King or Dennis is your move. Probably just favour Josh King because of the underlying stats and being on penalties. ATMB Tham saying King, Dennis, Dalot. Who should I bench? Wouldn't bench Dalot. If you have him at 4.4 million, I think you just play him. He's too good value. King or Dennis, this is the big problem right now and why I don't recommend people going for a double up in Watford forwards, because you don't know which one to play week in, week out. I'm going to judge it based on underlying stats and I'm going to tell you to bench Dennis, but this is the problem with having two Watford forwards. You never know which one to start. So I would go for King personally and I would start Dalot. Mr. Snipes saying, what is expected minutes? Basically, that's part of what our projected points use. It's basically, what do we project that player to, what do we expect their minutes to be over the next 5 game weeks? So, for example, someone like Edison at Man City, he would have an expected minutes of 90 minutes per game, whereas somebody like Jota, who over the last 15 game weeks has averaged, let's say, 70 minutes, our projected points would have an expected minutes of 70 minutes, roughly around that. So that's what expected minutes roughly are. Cheers, guys, for covering that about expected minutes. Emmanuel saying, should I bench Jota or Kufal? Obviously, with the fixture away against Burnley, I don't think that's necessarily a bad fixture, West Ham. And with Johnson carrying a knock, Kufal could get minutes in this game week. Again, it really comes down to what sort of risk appetite you have. If you can't bring yourself to bench Jota because of him potentially starting, I'll go for Jota because the way I view it is Jota either starts or he gets no minutes. That's my personal opinion there, guys. Let me know what's your thoughts on Jota. Miko saying Broha or Rafinha first bench. Based on the games, I probably would go for Rafinha. Main reason being is because we know Rafinha is going to get guaranteed game time unless he gets injured in that game. He's playing 90 minutes. Broha, on the other hand, could easily get rotated. So I would go for Rafinha of the two. Apologies, guys. It's just absolutely skipped everybody's questions and flew down. Okay, here we go. Here we go. People saying about the West Ham double up. I really do think that an Antonio and Bowen double up is a solid move going forward. We know that their fixtures are pretty favourable from an attacking perspective. We can see here on the fixture analyzer going forward that West Ham have good fixtures, second best over the next 6 game weeks. I think a nice combination of Bowen and Antonio shouldn't be, worried about. I think that's a nice use of your money over the coming game weeks if you can't reach up to some of them premium midfield assets. Witter saying, have Jota, Smith Rowe and Foden. I already taken -4. Should I do another transfer? I personally would hold all 3 of those assets. I know that you might not get all of them playing, you might get any of them playing, but I think that there's a small chance that, for example, they set out this game week and then all are available for the following game week and you're going to want all of them back. So I think you just kind of take this game week with, pinch of salt and you accept that it could be a bit of a difficult time, but I just think that's probably the best move really going forward in this game week. Let me know, guys, what your thoughts are. Tumwizzy, apologies. Who'd you bench, Rafinha or Pookie? Oof, that is super tough. Obviously, Norwich have got a tricky fixture against Man United. I probably would... I would probably bench Pookie of the 2. Should I buy Ronaldo instead Vardy for a -4? I'm scared about the Vardy doesn't score because he might be start from the bench. I think if you have a choice, I would go for Ronaldo and look at it over a longer term perspective. Mr. Stokes, can you help me? I have 16.7 million available and I need a forward and midfielder. First and foremost, guys, 16.7 million in your bank right now. Let Mr. Snipes know in the comments what would you do with that money available. I think with 16.7 million, you can't really go for the likes of Ronaldo because of his price point. You're just going to be having a real bench fodder. If you want to go that direction, then that could be a move, but I don't even think you have the funds available to do Ronaldo and a midfielder. So I would first say to you, have you got Antonio? If you don't, I would go Antonio and maybe a Man City asset like Bernardo Silva. I think you can afford those 2. That'll probably be a priority for me right now. Antonio Bowen for 16 million. Yeah, great shout. Antonio Bowen's great option. Joe saying, hi Nacho, Gallagher to Bernardo and Diaz to Dallo, or option 2, Gallagher or Mbuemo to Bowen and Diaz to Kufal. I probably prefer the first option, but I really don't like the selling of Man City defenders. They're too good defensively. Underlying stats are amazing. I just really wouldn't necessarily do that. Lipex Gaming is saying, do I do Dennis or Watkins for Vardy for a -4 as Vardy played 90 minutes? Do I do Dennis or Watkins for Vardy for a -4? I would just take the risk with Vardy and play him, personally. I would take the risk and play him. We've got loads of stuff here. We've got King for Armstrong or Dallo for Region. I would probably go for Dallo for Region because we think Spurs might miss the next 2 game weeks. So Nuclear Iron say about me speeding up. Yes, I do need to speed up big time. Tony to King first or Region to Dallo. Already have Dennis. I would go for Tony to King or for, as I mentioned, I think Region to Dallo is a solid move because you get guaranteed game time. Like I said, guys, only 15 minutes to the deadline, so please get your teams locked in and then come back to the stream. I still need to do my transfer, guys. I have a little bit of a consideration. I've got 15 minutes, so I'm a bit panicky. A possibility if that football game comes to a pause potentially could happen, definitely. But again, hopefully it doesn't. Otherwise, we're all going to be not knowing what to do with ourselves. Patrick, is Jota to Rashford a good free transfer if I had the funds? Personally, I need to see more from Rashford. I need to see him get guaranteed minutes. I probably wouldn't recommend going for that one. But, if Rashford does get game time, we know he's a solid player. But no, I wouldn't make that move personally because you don't want Jota back in the following game weeks. I need Vardy out so I can afford Trent. Yeah, Trent is still a brilliant option going forward. Wow. Still plenty to get through, guys. What have we got here? Is Mio saying, is a -4 to get Dallo in for Livramento Duffy worth it? Is it for a -4? Probably not this game week. Not this game week. But if you're looking at it over a longer term, then I think you could pay dividends. But, selling a player like Livramento who's going to get guaranteed game time this week, I think could hinder you over the longer term if you make that move. So just be cautious of that, really. Livramento is likely to play. Matteo saying Benteke or Jota to start. Again, I just think I would start Jota because Benteke's minutes is a risk as it is, let alone. But I just think Jota, unless we get more information next 15, I would just start him and hope for the best. Bench Rafinha or Pukki. As I said, I would bench Pukki personally. If Jota doesn't start, does that mean Origi will replace him? This depends on Firmino. If Firmino's back, I wouldn't be surprised if they get him back in to start. Otherwise, I'll be very tempted to... I think I would be tempted to start Origi if I was Klopp. Just get some minutes into their legs. Should I take a hit to get King for St. Maximin or play St. Maximin and wait till next game week to get King? Yeah, if it's for a hit, I wouldn't suggest that move. I wouldn't go for a hit personally. Vardy and Son for Ronaldo and Bowen for a hit. Vardy and Son for Ronaldo and Bowen for a hit. So we know Vardy has a chance of playing this game week. I'd be surprised if he's benched this game week personally. I don't think Rodgers looks at it and thinks we're going to play him in the Europa League and bench him in the Premier League. I just don't see that happening. Son we know can miss the next 2. So I like the move personally. If you look at it, that Vardy could bang this game week and just accept it really. Tumwise G saying Rafinha to Bowen for a hit. I don't like it for a hit. I'll probably wait one game we can play the move. What about Foden to Bernardo Silva? Again, super tricky because next game week in the midweek, Foden could be back. And as you know with the videos, we have Foden as the better option from an underlying stats perspective. So I would be more tempted to probably not do that for a hit and just accept that you might have Foden available the following game week. As I said, guys, apologies, I'm looking down at my phone because I haven't even bloody done my own transfers. I need to confirm them. So I will be answering while quickly flicking through everything. Let's have a look a minute. Guys, let me know. I've currently made my transfers. I've done, who have I done? Kane to Ronaldo. And I think I brought in Dallo as well, going against my own thought process. I think I was panicking really before it all. But let me know what your thoughts are in regards to... Should you do Rafinha to Bowen? I know I've been telling you guys to do it, but for a -4, it's just a little bit tricky to make. Probably should have played the Foster move. Right, guys, what we got here? Brandon saying, should I risk playing without a goalkeeper or take a -4? Okay, personally, right now, I'm going without a goalkeeper. But, you know, you're going to get guaranteed 10 men. I think if you like someone attractive in that asset region, then I would just go for it. But... honestly, guys, goalkeepers, their ceilings are so low. I don't think necessarily it's a desperate move. And with a -4, obviously for one game week, you need them to basically keep a clean sheet. That's kind of the theory behind it. Well, no, because they're going to get 2. So it's basically a -2, basically, isn't it? So you need to get 2 points. Bowen in the place of Rafinha or King in the place of Tony. Bowen in the place of Rafinha or King in the place of Tony. I would go for... It has to be King in the place of Tony because you have no game time for Tony this week. You can play Rafinha. Look at your squad. If you have 15 playing, then I would probably go for the Bowen move. If minutes are an issue in your squad, don't sell somebody who is going to get minutes like Rafinha. I just don't think it's worth it. -8 to bring Bowen for Jota so I can play 11 players this game week. That's a really tricky one. I wouldn't do it for a -8. I really wouldn't. I just don't think that's a worthwhile move because you're going to want Jota in the longer term on that one. Fady saying, start which 2? Gallagher, Foden or Christensen? Cheers, mate. Of the start 2, will Christensen get minutes this game week? I don't necessarily know if he will. I would start Gallagher because of the home fixture, and I would probably start Foden in the hope that he starts. I just think I'd rather have players who have a higher FPL ceiling, so I would go for that route personally and bench Christensen. Jota to Bernardo Silva for a free. I just think you're going to want Jota back if he misses this game week, so I probably wouldn't make that move for a free. Start to Rico Henry, Gallagher, Gundogan, and Jota. You know, I would probably... that's really tricky. You can't start Rico Henry above these assets. I would probably go for starting Gundogan and Jota and hope for the best. And then Gallagher comes in as first sub if you have that option. Will Shaw start? Really don't know on that one, unfortunately. Based on the Europa League, I think Tellez has probably got the shirt right now. Vardy to Antonio, Son to Bowen, Veltman to TA for a -4. Like those moves for a -4 long term. Like those moves if you view it from a longer term perspective. Start Jota or Smith Rowe. I'll go for Jota personally. Rashford versus Dallo. You know, because of the value, I'd probably go Dallo. But again, Man United defensively aren't, you know, massively the best right now. Nanjay saying bench Zaha or Jota. I would say bench Zaha. Again, it comes down to what kind of manager you are. If you just can't bring yourself to bench Jota and you want guaranteed minutes, go for the Zaha route. The way I'm viewing it personally is Jota's either going to get minutes to start or he's going to get no minutes off the bench. That's the big thing. Son and Reguilon for TEA and Gundogan for a -8 hit. I just don't like the Gundogan move, so I think his minutes could be rotational. So I would argue, could you do to Bowen? Bowen's probably a bit more guaranteed game time. Or Silva, Bernardo Silva. Son, Tony, Sanchez to Bowen, King, and De Gea for a -8. Son, Tony, Sanchez to Bowen, King, and De Gea for a -8. Do I like those moves? I probably do like those moves long term. I like those moves long term. I just hate -8s. But this game week, a lot of managers are doing the same. Which one to go for? Mount or Bernardo Silva for Jota? I have Foden too. Again, Mount is projected to score more points than Bernardo Silva, but I'd probably argue Bernardo Silva's minutes are a bit more guaranteed just because of the Pep comments and everything. So I like Bernardo Silva, but if you have Foden already, I think this is the rare occasion where I probably would recommend going Mason Mount over him. Brandon saying, should I bench Jota or Rafinha? I would bench Rafinha personally, just because his ceiling's quite low this game week. I just think that's probably the better move, really. Sorry, guys, if I'm on my phone. I just got to do my quickly check everything out on here a second because I haven't done my own transfers. It is terrible, terrible, terrible. Let me just have a quick look here. I'm tempted to do a -4 and I've got 2% battery, which is not good news, guys. Panic for me in the comments. I'll just give you a deliberation, guys. I'm currently debating whether to do Rafinha to Bowen or Rafinha to Bernardo Silva. I know I've been recommending different options, but right now it's a really tricky one what direction to go in because I'm a big fan of Bowen. Big fan of Bowen, and it gives me a bit more funds available to invest in the rest of the squad. You know what? Let's do it. Let's pull the trigger, guys. Rafinha to Bowen as a transfer. Let's get it done. -4 coming in on the squad. It's done. Confirm transfers. Team's locked in, guys. Apologies. I had to have a selfish moment a minute just to get my team locked in. Now, which one to bench of the lot? That's the big question. Someone said about flip a coin. Love that. Okay, team's locked in. Lots to do about Bowen. Bowen, yes. Bowen is the man for me right now from a personal perspective. But let me know, obviously, what your thoughts are. Chris saying 2% battery. Do you even FPL? Guys, that is it, really. 2%. Literally, phones are always just chilling on awful batteries when you bloody play FPL, isn't it? It's shocking. So we say, tell me my team. Okay, my team. Quickly, got no goalkeeper, which is ridiculous. I appreciate that. It's a mental move. But the way I view it, guys, is Sanchez is going to be available in game week 17, we hope. I just think that's probably the move I want to make. The Cancelo, Trent, James, and Dallo in defence. But I hated the Dallo move. I regretted it the minute I'd done it. Mbeumo, Jota, Salah, Bowen, and Antonio and Ronaldo up front. King on the bench right now. Let's have a look at what we have here. King versus Mbeumo for a comparison. Let's have a look at this, guys. For projected points, we have Mbeumo to score 4.1 points, which is decent. King to score 4.1 points. Guys, oh, they're the same. That's not even handy. That's not even useful. Guys, what an fantasy football fix has killed me right there. Absolutely killed me, guys. Alpha saying Son, Wilson to Gray plus Antonio, or Jota and Son to Bowen and Mane. Don't like the Mane move personally because I assume you got Salah, so I would recommend probably going for the first option. Start 2, bench 1, Jota, Smith Rowe and Rafinha. I'd probably go for starting Jota and Rafinha. Oh God, hang on, guys, I bloody made. Okay, I think my team's set. Looks awful, though. Okay. Guys, let's get some questions. Nacho, Jota for Bowen for a hit. Come on, tell me. I personally wouldn't. Mainly reason is I'm looking longer term for you. I would want Jota over the longer term. That's my big view on it. But I appreciate if you need a player to start in your team, I like the Bowen move. That's the way I view it right now, honestly. I was going to flip between 6 times it landed on tails, king 6 times in a row. Sorry, Dennis. Fate. Love that. It's a good logic. Tom, no, I'm one short of point. Yeah. Nanjay, only Jota on my bench. Should I take a hit to have bench cover? Should I take a hit to have bench cover? Probably not. I wouldn't do bench cover, really. I'll just let your bench ride it out, really. It depends who you're doing. It really depends who you're doing. Captain Ronaldo, Salah. Our projected points have Salah by far with 9. I would go for Salah, definitely. Vice Captain Ronaldo. And Buemo without Tony is like Robin without Batman. Love that. Is Nacho having a meltdown? He is. Honestly, having an absolute meltdown right now. I should have done my team before the live stream, but I'm locked in now. It's bloody tough, though. Go King for a sub. Yes, that's what I've gone for. I know, apologies. I got King starting now, surprisingly, because I just don't really like Buemo as a player. He hurts my feelings. What do you think about Jota for Bowen for a hit? I only have Livramento on the bench and Jesus and Gundogan in my team, and I am not sure they're starting. What do you think about Jota? I just don't like the Jota to Bowen for a hit. I just think, backing up Tom there, I just think he's going to be available soon and you're not going to want to lose him. Victor, bench 1, Livramento, Lowton or Rafinha. Burnley at home to a Rafinha away to that. I would have to go for Livramento just because Southampton defensively have been really poor recently. Johnny in capitals, would you sub Jota for Hudson-Odoi, Livramento, or leave him starting? Hudson-Odoi don't think is necessarily got guaranteed game time. I would just keep Jota personally in the starting 11. That's my say, honestly. Mr. Stokes, would you say Vardy in for Kane? No, because Leicester could get their game called off because of COVID in game week 17. I think that's enough of a reason not to go for Vardy. Peter, I do think Villa will give Poole a tough game. I'm leaning towards Ronaldo captain. Yeah, I agree, Peter. I do think it's going to be a tough game, but Liverpool have still been very, very good, creating massive, big chances. That's why I'm still backing Salah, personally. Sujay saying, start Livramento or Smith Rowe. Got to be Smith Rowe for me. Got to be Smith Rowe. Mr. Stokes, Vardy for Kane. No, as I mentioned, I like him for this game week, but the risk of Leicester's game getting called off is the reason why I would not go for Jamie Vardy. Just don't think it's worth the risk at all. Guys, 2 minutes to the deadline. We need to get these teams locked in. Honestly, guys, we need to get them locked in because we have no time at all to be dilly-dallying. No time at all to be dilly-dallying. And also, I say, guys, if you did enjoy the stream, make sure you hit that like button because this has been a manic one. Definitely my one. Start Rudiger, Smith Rowe or Jota. This is incredibly tough. Again, it completely depends on what kind of manager you are. If you want guaranteed game time, I would just go for Rudiger. I know I've been saying Jota through and through, but if you want guaranteed game time, go for Rudiger. Otherwise, it's Jota and then Smith Rowe in my eyes. Hudson-Odoi, Livramento as first sub. It's got to be Hudson-Odoi. Got to be Hudson-Odoi. Guys, get them teams locked in. You've got about 30 seconds till teams anyone else riding without a goalkeeper like me. Don't know how this has happened, but it's happened. Let me know, guys. Mr. Snipes, I'm risking it. Okay, fair. 1 minute. As you said, guys, FPL Phillips, hope he's doing well. As always, guys, FPL Phillips, top obviously creator, obviously one of the hosts of this channel. So make sure you are following FPL Phillips along with Fantasy Football Fix, of course. I think my mind's gone, guys. But like I said, honestly, guys, we have 1 minute to the deadline. If you are tuning in right now and you haven't uploaded your squad to Fantasy Football Fix, I massively recommend you guys doing so. Got some amazing free tools, and the best thing about it, which Tom has just dropped in the chat, you get access to Premium Plus for free until the end of December. You get all these amazing perks for free, and that's it, guys. That is it. That is the deadline. I hope you guys have had your teams locked in. You haven't been lost in this live stream and completely forgot about the time, because that's it, guys. We have officially hit the game week 16 deadline. Let me know in the chat, how many points hits have you taken? Have you been able to just use free hits? And if you are one of those legends that has only been able to roll a free transfer, I need to know this, because seriously, guys, if you've been able to roll your free transfer, that is sensational FPL management. So please let me know if there's anybody out there that has done that. That would be incredible. That deserves a Twitter shout out, and obviously a shout out on this live stream. But I'm pretty confident there's been a lot of point hits in this kind of game week. I think this has been one that the Spurs fixtures force a lot of people's hands. Sam saying Jota hasn't travelled. Breaking news. So, Sam, how accurate is that? Let me know, because you could be playing a lot of people here. So hopefully, I hope it's not true. Hope it's not true. But like I said, guys, hope you enjoyed this live stream. Of course, that's the deadline gone. So I appreciate. I'm kind of just a rambling idiot now. I'm not really offering much. So hopefully it has provided some value. And as always, we're going to be dropping plenty of videos from now until the end of the year. So if you haven't already, make sure you first and foremost like this live stream, because you've probably seen me lose my mind over the last 10 minutes, which is probably worth a like in itself. Make sure you subscribe to Fantasy Football Fix. Get your teams uploaded on fantasyfootballfix.com. You won't regret it. Offers so many brilliant free tools along with premium tools. If you do, of course, sign up to the I can't even speak. If you sign up, and notification bells. We have so many videos dropping, brilliant price change videos, and of course the live streams, which you don't want to be missing out on. We're going to be back. We're going to be back tomorrow, I'm pretty sure. What's the day today? Saturday. If not, we're going to be dropping plenty of videos. Monday is the next live stream. We have a Tuesday deadline. Unfortunately, right now, it looks like we might not be doing a Tuesday live stream, which means we're going to compensate that with a Monday live stream. It means it's not going to be as manic. I'm not going to be losing my mind while I am live streaming to you guys, although it could have been a good laugh. So what we'll be able to do is really deep dive into some questions and hopefully use plenty of the tools available to answer all the questions, as I'm sure it's going to be absolute carnage off the back of this game week 16. Tim saying John's taking a nap. That's quite interesting to hear. Peter saying Captain Ronaldo, hopefully that will get me to top 20k. Peter, if that gets you to top 20k, fully deserved. And I imagine wherever you are right now, you have had you've got a decent overall rank. Let me know as well, guys, what's your overall rank right now. But as Tom said, stream on Monday. That is going to be our next live stream. Great opportunity for you guys to reflect on a game week 16 performance. And before we've emerged from the game week 16 deadline, we're going to be back into game week 17, and we're going to need to get our FPL heads back on. So there's plenty to discuss in that game week 17 live stream. So as ever, guys, like the video, hit that subscribe button and that notification bell. You're going to see me personally on that Monday live stream. So hopefully we have a few videos dropping over the weekend. So hit that notification bell so you don't miss a thing. So I'm going to wrap this stream up here, guys. Really hope that you have appreciated the carnage that it has been this live stream. And I personally will see you guys all on the Monday live stream, probably dropping at 5:30, if not 6 o'clock. Check out the live stream link for that, and make sure you obviously set a reminder. And I will see you guys very, very soon. Thanks again for tuning in. All the best this game week. Let's hope for a Josh King hat-trick and a Cristiano Ronaldo hat-trick. Take care. Cheers.